Thank you for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. With me, as always, is our host, Hal Humphreys. Hey, Hal, how are you doing?
How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great. We have a really interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about something most appraisers are not talking about yet, and they need to be talking. There's going to be some changes come into the real estate industry, and we're bringing on Candy Cooke to talk about it. Hey, Candy, how are you?
Hey guys.
Candy Cooke's with Agent eLearning and Cooked Real Estate.
And, full disclosure here, Candy is not only a partner with us in the business, she is a dear friend. So this is a little bit of that, we've got friends on the podcast thing going on. Candy, we're tickled to have you here today.
So you're going to be nice to me though, right?
I did not say that. I did not say that. Candy, for those of the folks in the room that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your history in the business.
All right. I am both a broker and a certified general appraiser. I've been doing real estate in Texas for 40 years. I hate saying that. I've got my broker's license in Colorado and Tennessee also. Don't ask me why. Don't ask that question. So I've been floating around this world for a long time. Now I teach.
And so what you're telling me is you have a really good bit of experience in not only telling people what their property is worth, but helping them sell it as well.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you in the audience that don't know who Candy is, if you ever get a chance to take a class from Candy, do it. She is an engaging presenter. She knows her material inside and out. She does a lot of work with us over at Agent eLearning. She also does some work with us here at Appraisal eLearning. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Candy. I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to take a short break and hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Need a profitable PDC solution for your clients? Jaro's appraisal management software makes the process faster and easier. With Jaro, you can order standard appraisals, inspections, and hybrids, all on one seamless platform. The software also gives you everything you need to manage new vendors by taking care of background checks and letting you shop from a pre-vetted panel of inspectors with a wide range of credentials. Get started with Jaro today at tryjaro, that's tryjaro.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzz. I have Candy Cooke with me today. Candy, we're here today to talk about one specific thing, and that is the National Association of REALTORs. What is going on with NAR these days?
Ooh. Now I can't believe it, but there are people who say, "What lawsuit?" I think it's kind of interesting. There are actually 3 lawsuits that have been filed out against NAR and numerous other brokerages. There's one that slid in last week that brought in 7 more brokerages in. So it's kind of a wild ride. What has happened is that years ago, and I think it's probably about 5 years ago, NAR was sued along with a couple other people for violating antitrust, saying that we were setting the commission fees and the people suing were sellers, saying that they had been made to pay the buyer's commission. We had a settlement, and then we didn't have a settlement. The DOJ threw the settlement out. We went back in. Now let me think if I can do it right. Anywhere, which used to be Realogy, settled for $88 million. And Remax settled for $53 million. And then Keller Williams and NAR, and there's a couple other ones in there that I can't keep track of them all, went to court last week. They had 11 days of testimony. The jury was out for 2 hours and came back and awarded $1.8 billion with a B lawsuit. And because it's antitrust, they trebled it, and it's $5.4 billion.
Oh my goodness, this is not a small deal.
No, this is huge. And as soon as the verdict came in, the same attorneys turned around and went after all of the other big brokerages they hadn't touched yet. So they went after EXP and Redfin and Compass and everybody. Okay.
So what does this mean for the industry, for the housing industry?
It's pretty terrifying, Hal, because what they're saying is that the sellers had to pay the buyer's commission. Okay. It's been set up this way forever. Okay. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what they did is when the listing agent went in, the listing agent would talk to their seller and they'd say, okay, if I get paid this much and I pay this much to buyers who bring us a valid buyer, we can get your house sold. And what they're saying is, no, the sellers don't want to pay that anymore. Okay. Well, we got a couple issues in there. Number one, VA says that the VA buyer cannot pay any commission out of their pocket. None. So what this lawsuit means is that VA we just threw them out. We just threw them away. Okay. Many first-time home buyers don't have the money to pay the commission. Okay. So there's another one. And the lenders don't want to wrap it into the mortgage. So we might not have anything there. So one of the things that we see coming at us is that the buyers go unrepresented, which in my mind makes me just go into a panic. I'm in Texas. In Texas, they have a law, the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, so that the consumer can sue very easily if somebody makes a promise, like if they promise there's something there and it's not, or they promise something's not there and it is. Consumers can jump in that quickly and file a lawsuit. Now, think about this. We have the seller and the listing agent don't want to pay for a buyer's agent. Buyer can't afford to pay for a buyer's agent, so buyer is unrepresented, and these license holders are making promises to these poor innocent buyers about things. The lawsuits we're scared of them. Frankly, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying, and when you talk about a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, a buyer unrepresented, the seller's agent has a fiduciary responsibility to do everything they can for their client, which is the seller.
You got
they don't have any fiduciary responsibility to the buyer.
We have to treat them honestly. That's it. We don't have to tell them anything.
Okay.
So, Hal, as appraisers, I've started questioning this, and I've thrown it at some of the appraisers, and they've gone, "Oh, we don't care. That's not our problem." And I said, "Well, here's the thing." I said, "So what happens when the buyer does agree to pay the commission to their agent? Okay, so are they still going to offer the same amount to the seller, or are they going to reduce it a percentage?" And I'm going to tell you how I actually did a transaction like this a few years ago, and the seller refused to pay commissions. So my buyer said, "Okay, we'll pay your commission." And they offered 3% less than what the seller was expecting, and the seller was mad. And I had to go back and say, "Okay, you can have the full price and pay me, or you get the price that the buyer has proposed and you don't have to pay the commission." What's that going to do to the sales comparison approach?
Wow. So, I mean, at the end of the day, so as a real estate appraiser, math is kind of where we live. So if the seller doesn't want to pay buyer's part of the commission. And the buyer comes in and says, well, that's fine. Don't pay it. I'll offer you 3% less. The seller has, in fact, just paid the buyer's commission.
How is it that I think it's the lack of ability to do math. I don't think people are hearing this. Why would you go into this? And why would you, okay, I want to sell my house. I'm going to offer a fee to the buy side because I want them coming and I want to get this deal done. And I want somebody taking care of those people and making sure that I don't have any issues on my side.
Right. It seems incredibly foolish for any of the parties to come to the table without an agent representing them. You know this as well as anyone, the ins and outs of how to even write a contract, get a sale closed, all that business is just, it's complicated. And most first-time buyers and a lot of just people that have bought 2 or 3 houses, it's confusing.
They don't have a clue. So Hal, some of the things people kept talking 3. I'm going to use the word. I've almost removed 3 from my vocabulary. Because people would go standard or the usual or everybody or whatever. It's always been negotiable. So let me walk you in, and I come in from a different side, and I'm not sure all the appraisers and everybody understands this, but we have a code of ethics that we have to use, okay? And the code said that, we offer cooperation. And with that cooperation does not necessarily mean that we owe compensation, okay? So if I, as a buyer's agent, want to be compensated, I have the right to go to the listing agent before I ever show the house and say, will you pay me X? I don't know. It could be 1, it could be 3, it could be 10. I don't care what it is. Okay.
And all right, let's be clear. I think one of the problems that the general public has is we can talk about it's fully negotiable, and I've seen it negotiated back and forth, but everybody across the country has in their head 6% commission, 3 to the buyer's agent, 3 to the seller's agent. And everybody's afraid to say it, but that's what everybody thinks.
We don't think it's there anymore. We think that we've had all of these new models have come in with flat fee, and we have the 1%, and we have all of these different things. So the thing is, and I looked at the dates, I think it's since 1999 we have said that you're supposed to negotiate your compensation before accepting cooperation. I mean, it's been in writing. Do you think anybody's paid any attention? I don't think so.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to take a real quick break. We're going to hear from another one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back after this.
Did you know that NAN hosts quarterly discussions with our appraisal panel on bias, inclusion, equity, and diversity initiatives that impact the appraisal industry? The topic of bias in the appraisal world will remain at the forefront of legislative, agency, and lender priorities well into the future. At NAN, we believe that intentional bias is only a very small fraction of the underlying issue, and that outdated policies and regulations and unconscious bias are of far greater concern. It's our hope to work closely with the appraiser community as partners in an endeavor to improve processes and procedures and ensure equitable treatment for all valuations. Learn more by visiting nan-amc.com.
So welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I've got Candy Cooke on today. She is a realtor, she's a broker, and she is an appraiser. She's also an instructor here with Appraiser e-learning. She's an instructor over at Agent e-learning. We've been talking about the lawsuits, the recent one last week that early this month that settled, or that actually went to court, was tried, and the jury came back with a verdict. Candy, do you mind to go through those numbers one more time?
Okay, the verdict came back and said 1.8 billion, and I have to make sure everybody gets the B in there because it's antitrust. They treble it, And so it went to 5.4 billion.
Good heavens. So, and I'm assuming this is a class action lawsuit. There were several parties that were
Absolutely.
okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's okay. So one of the things, Hal, we talked about it, but we didn't really say much, is it's going to get appealed.
Sure.
There's no way that it's not going to be appealed. Okay.
Right.
I don't care which way that verdict went last week, it was going to get appealed. Our comments have come out and said, we think it'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. I'm not an attorney. I'm not any of this, but there's no way that this isn't going to go all the way.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to be hard on the appeal. It's deep pockets to file that appeal. So
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Candy. You know, we speak primarily to the real estate valuation world over here on Appraisal Buzz. You know, the people that tune in are AMCs, appraisers, lenders, and vendors in this space. Here's the question. What can AMCs and appraisers and lenders do to get through this, to deal with this?
I think that we're going to need some classes, some education on it. You know, I've walked both sides of the aisle on this thing, and I don't think that most of the appraisers understand. When I came into the business, and yes, I'm one of those old ones, we were still part of NAR. We
Right.
all were together. I didn't have a license. I just worked under my broker's license and all of this. I understood both sides. We have a lot of appraisers who have never tried to sell a house, never understood this. You know, when I got licensed in 86, the contract was 4 pages long. It's now 11. Okay. And, you know, part of USPAP says we got to analyze the contract. Do you think that our appraisers understand that there's stuff in that contract now that we're going to have to look at to make sure we're not going to get slapped upside of the head? And I can't say it any other way.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, USPAP says very clearly that if the contract or any pending sales of the subject property are available during the normal course of business, the appraiser is to analyze that contract to see what, if any, impact it has on their valuation. So, you know, the ability to read through that and understand what it's saying, and if we're having multi-billion-dollar lawsuits over how agents on both sides of the negotiation are getting paid, and people are monkeying the numbers on the contract to make that work, then it very well may have an impact on the price in cash for a piece of property today. What's the one thing you would say to appraisers today to take away from this? What's the one thing you want them to think about?
They got to understand how the negotiation goes on. Okay. And I know that sounds nuts, but people just see that whole number being thrown out there. And I think the appraisers, if they can get their head around that negotiation, where that money's going, you know, I think we're going to see people play with closing costs. We're going to see with concession. We're going to see with, I think LTVs are going to look a little weird.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times appraisers are like, no, that's not our part. Well, yeah, it is now, because that lawsuit just threw it right in the middle.
Right. Well, Candy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with us today. I always enjoy talking to you. It's good to see your face. When are you going to be in Nashville next?
Mid-December.
Awesome. Well, I hope that I get to see you when you come to Nashville. Jim Morrison, if you're in the room, do we by chance have an anonymous appraiser question that Candy and I can
We
try to
do.
answer?
And this question was from the Ask the Appraiser forum with John Copelis. I know we talked to him recently. But this one says, I'm a modular builder in Texas, building homes both on and off metal frame, and they've all mounted to a permanent foundation. We have paperwork from the state of Texas that certifies our homes are site-built real property homes. When it comes to modulars built on frame, appraisers want to appraise it as a manufactured home. How do we get our homes appraised?
Candy?
I actually watched that conversation. The thing is that modular is a whole different beast, and I think we got to quit saying. I still hear mobile home. I swear people are still using it. The stick builts or the modulars, we got to find affordable housing for people. State of Texas has already said they're not manufactured. I think it's going to take some work, and I think from the builder side, he's got to give us as many specs and all the information. On the appraiser side, I think you have to get rid of the bad feelings over manufacturing, because I don't know about I know how in Tennessee you guys had the rapid inflation on housing and everything. Yeah. Who's going to have a place that they can afford to live?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Candy. So if it's a modular home, a kit built home, does it have HUD tags?
No. And it's really clear that it doesn't have HUD tags. And it follows IBC, International Building Code. You know,
I would suggest that if it doesn't have a HUD tag, then I would address it as a site built home.
Absolutely. Okay. And somebody said, "Oh, well, it's on a steel frame." Who cares?
Right.
I've appraised steel framed houses. What do you want to do with those?
Right. Right. Okay. Well, I think that pretty well clears that up. Jim Morrison, thank you very much. Do we have anything else we need to cover today?
No, Candy, thanks so much for joining us. I think this was a great episode, and that's something appraisers need to know about, because we're not hearing enough people talk about this.
We've got to.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, for Jim Morrison and Candy Cooke, I'm Hal Humphreys, and that is your Appraisal Buzz.